Named by People magazine as America's Sexiest Veterinarian Alive, I'd like to welcome Dr. Evan Antin. Hi, Dr. Antin. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Now, when was it that you realized that you wanted to be a veterinarian?
Yeah, I always knew that animals would be a big part of my life, but really it wasn't until college I started taking more courses in biology and evolutionary biology and gained an appreciation for medicine and realized, you know what, this is definitely the career path for me, and I just never looked back after that. Hey, my name's Evan Antin. I'm a small animal, wildlife, and exotic animal veterinarian at Conejo Valley Veterinary Hospital in Thousand Oaks, and I've been working with animals pretty much my entire life. I'd say it really got serious when I was an undergrad. I went to the University of Colorado at Boulder and just loved it, and did a lot of courses in evolution and ecology, zoology, biology, etc. During undergrad, I studied abroad a couple times. One of those times was in Tanzania, and I did some other traveling in Africa, and that was amazing. And the other semester was in Australia, and I did some other Southern Pacific traveling. In both those experiences, I did a lot of studies in wildlife conservation, education, zoology, stuff like that. And so after undergrad, I was a veterinary technician, and then I was actually a personal trainer for a year after that, before vet school, but that's another story. And then going into vet school, I just knew I wanted to work with small animal as well as exotics. So I took every course I could involving exotic and wildlife animal medicine. I did externships at places like zoos, as well as all exotic private practices, and just really tried to get my feet wet with working with those different kinds of animals.
And now you're the most famous veterinarian in America. What began your rise to fame?
I'd say a few things. I mean, the People magazine thing was, I think, a part of that. I went kind of viral on social media a few years ago, and that definitely helped. And just, being a guest on different TV shows and promoting, animal awareness, wildlife conservation, and vet medicine on my own, on social media, on YouTube, and in TV, I think all played a part into that.
Now, earlier I mentioned that you were in People magazine as America's Sexiest Veterinarian Alive. Now, that didn't happen just once. You were actually in People magazine 3 times.
That's right, 3 times, yeah.
Yeah.
What happens when you get that title? Do you get an award or champion belt or something?
I do. I have 3 trophies, actually. They all sit above my bed. No, I'm just kidding. No, you just... No, it's just in the magazine. What you see is what you get.
You totally got me. How much did your life change after the very first time you were featured in People magazine?
Everything was different. I even looked at myself differently in the mirror, and just reminded myself how sexy I am. No, I'm just kidding. No, no. I mean, I didn't. It was great. Honestly, it was cool. Like I got to do some guest appearances on some really fun TV shows and do some interviews with other magazines and other things. My social media a few months after that started growing a bit more, and it's all been I've made it to my advantage and used it as a way to promote animals and vet medicine and wildlife conservation. So for me, it's been a really positive thing.
I think out of all your videos, my personal favorite was the one where you had the kids Q&A, where they were asking questions about their pets. That was a really fun one.
I love doing that. I love reaching out to kids. I mean, that's such an important way and an important time to get them interested in animals, because that's really such a critical period. And so they grow up and they have an interest or a fascination or even a desire to help conserve these animals.
Now, I'm sure you get a lot of questions from your fans. What's the most common question you get from your followers on Instagram and YouTube?
Gosh, I get a lot of kids just asking, how do I do what you do? I'd love to work with wildlife and animals around the world. How do you do it? And tell me how to do it. Yeah, so I made a whole YouTube video on it. It's called You Can Be a Vet, and I go through all the steps I did, the steps I recommend, and things you can do to get your hands on wildlife and work with animals.
I'm actually an animal lover myself. I love reptiles. I went through 2 turtles. Long story short, one of them ran away, and the other one I gave away when I left for college. But, I've always wondered, is there any real easy way to tell the gender of a red-eared slider turtle?
With sliders, I would say the first thing I look at to tell gender is look at their tail. Males have a phallus, and so they tend to have a bigger tail at the base, kind of before the vent, like where they poo and pee and everything out of, before the actual like tail part. So the whole tail itself looks bigger in a male slider.
Now, I read one of your passions is exotic animal medicine. What's the most unique animal that you've ever come across?
Gosh, I think that's really opinion-based because I've worked with all kinds of different, reptiles, whether it's crocodiles or snakes or tortoises or lots of different primates or sloths or, porcupines or bears or, you name it. It depends what's interesting, unique to you. Tapirs are pretty weird, I mean, there's a lot of, the animal kingdom's got a lot going on, and so I've worked with quite a few of the species, and, whatever you think is the weirdest, maybe I've worked with it. I don't know.
Now, let's talk about our furry feline friends at home. What are some signs of stress in cats that can sometimes be overlooked?
That can be overlooked, is that what you said?
Yeah, like signs of stress in cats. That
Sure,
can sometimes be
sure.
overlooked.
So, I mean, things you want to look for are just even subtle changes in behavior. And so that can be something like scratching excessively on furniture or urinating inappropriately, meaning outside of the litter box, marking and spraying. Even simple signs like a change in appetite or reduced appetite or lethargy or being less social. All of those things can be indicative that there's something going on.
What are possible at-home triggers that can cause stress?
As a vet, I have to say, make sure there's not an underlying health issue because that can be stressful for an animal and we can see signs of stress. So, talk to your local vet, consult with them, make sure your cat or your pet is healthy physically. And then if they appear to be physically healthy, now we need to look for other signs of stress. And that could be, cats and many animals are just like people. Changes in their life can cause stress. So maybe you have a new pet or a new baby, or you have people coming in from out of town, or you have home improvement work going on at home. Any of these things can cause a pet to be stressed.
Unfortunately, we are out of time. But again, thank you so much for that information for our furry feline friends at home. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. And just one thing while we're talking about stress, the Comfort Zone air diffusers help tremendously. I just got to let you know that. I see up to 90% almost of cats improve. So just had to throw that in there. Thank you so much for having me.
For more full-length celebrity interviews, visit sidewalkstv.com.